this is.
Cook your seeds to death.
Can you see the difference between...
Good morning. Welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. That is little Bucky there.
Elvis's two boys did get a home. They've got a deposit down and they're gonna wait till they're 8 weeks old to go home. But that's exciting.
So I think the update that I have for you today is mostly a garden update, but we are also somewhat impatiently waiting for new babies to hit the ground. Barely is due this weekend.
These guys here, these are all mini La Manchas, but Barely is due with Nigerian dwarfs. I've been feeling her ligaments. They're super, super squishy, but they're still there. She's not gonna deliver today.
Her due date is the 3rd.
The little babies are around 3 weeks old, and I've noticed that they're starting to eat hay. Chewing up some hay. Last year's babies are eternally jealous. You'll be all right. Molly will be back later to play, okay?
The sky is looking a little bit ominous still this morning. We had a decent storm roll through very early this morning, and we've lived here almost 5 years at this point, and we've yet to see hail. Last night we had penny-sized hail, and I have not checked on the greenhouse plastic since then.
I'm guessing it's okay. It looks okay from here, but really the driving force of it was from that direction. All these little marks on the side of the greenhouse I taped over. This is greenhouse repair tape, but these little dots are just from little goat hooves when I had goats up next to the greenhouse one time. Well, we've got this. It doesn't really look like hail, to be honest.
Greenhouse plastic really should be replaced about every 4 years. This is going to be the 4th summer, I think, that this plastic has been on. And so it's due to be replaced. So if we have a few holes, which we already have anyway, it's not a big deal. Nope, everything looks fine and normal. It's nice and cozy in here. That wind chill, it'll get you. It makes me want to pull out my hat.
I actually have not watered inside this greenhouse in well over a month, as you can see. Despite it being covered, rain does come in here, and it's kind of nice.
But it's also not great because it's the reason that some of my plants have just gotten so waterlogged that they've died.
We are starting to see a little bit of action out of these cabbages. They're not very big. The cauliflowers that have not died in here have gotten stressed out enough where they decided they'd rather flower than form a head. That's okay. Look at how cute this is.
I did harvest broccoli from this row just a few days ago.
And see, I've got little side shoots that I can harvest. And there's a couple heads that I'm waiting to get a little bit bigger, but this one might not get a little bit bigger. It's starting to kind of separate here.
So I'll probably have to come get that one soon.
I noticed that our parsnips have finally started to put on some true leaves.
These little leaves that you first see pop up out of the ground, those are their seedling leaves. There might be a proper name for them, but the true leaf is what comes in after that. And we're seeing quite a few true leaves. I have been coming through and thinning them out. I did plant the parsnips quite densely in each planting hole, but I only want one parsnip per like 6 inches.
So I've just been pinching off the excess. Whichever one looks bigger and stronger is the one that I've been leaving. And so far, so good in here. Look at that. This is actually soil that I had taken out of this soil bag here to put in some pots to start my spring and summer garden. That there is a brassica. I don't know what it is. Over here are the peach trees that we planted. You can see that they are having a good time.
These are called the Bonfire Peach Tree. I got them from fastgrowingtrees.com. They are touted as a container variety that probably won't get more than about 5 feet tall, and that's likely from ground level. So I'll have to move these as they grow.
But so far, so good. They have started to bloom a little bit. We might get a few little peaches. We'll see. Really, their first season, they should be focusing on their root development.
but I can't promise you that I'm gonna pull off every little peach. We may leave a couple on.
You can see the greenery that's down here in the mulch. I put down a lot of alyssum seeds. Now this is way too much alyssum. Certain plants are gonna shade out other plants.
But I bought quite a lot of alyssum seed. That is, I've got some over here. Let me just show it to you. There's quite a lot of weeds over here, but this little flower, this is alyssum. This is a white variety. You can get it in purples and pinks, and it works really well as like a living mulch. The roots of the alyssum don't like overtake the plant that they are planted next to, so they work really well in symbiosis, and they're frost tolerant. They're technically part of the Brassica family.
So I've purchased quite a lot of alyssum seed because I plan to use it as like a helper to my mulch this season.
Plus it looks pretty. Pretty things make me happy.
This area of the greenhouse has historically been quite wild. Last year I let it go a little bit crazy and we did lose most of the strawberries that were in the green stalk, but the ones that are on the lower tiers actually threw out runners, and they settled those runners, or the runners rooted in the weed fabric here. You can see back behind I left a couple strawberries in here just in case. The ones that I did pull out of the weed fabric and try to root back in the cups just in case they didn't survive. But truthfully, it looks like every single strawberry has taken root and started growing some more,
which I'm grateful for. The strawberries gave me a little bit of grace. Last year, the plant that really overtook this area, and I think probably the year prior to, is a tomato that we have kind of growing wild at this point. I don't plant it anymore intentionally because it always comes back every year. It's called a yellow currant tomato, and it is absolutely delicious.
I know for sure that we're going to be seeing more of it, but I have two little seedlings down here. Can you see that? These two little tomato seedlings. I guarantee you that is the yellow currant tomato.
So for now, I'm gonna leave them be. I haven't started them. This is actually the first tomato germination that we have on the homestead this year. It's funny. And later on, when they get a little bit bigger, I will transplant those to somewhere else.
So here are some of the seeds that I have started this week. I don't think we have any germination quite yet.
These are the tomatoes that we started on camera. I think I started those probably about a week ago, and the temperatures have been pretty variable in the greenhouse as they are. When it's cloudy like this, the best that I can expect out of the greenhouse is for it to hold about 10 degrees more warmth than the outside air, and that's mostly because of the greenhouse providing a wind block. But at night, if we don't see any kind of sun during the day, at night the greenhouse is going to get as cold as the outside air minus the wind chill. And tonight we're going to see, I think, upper 20s, low 30s, so I am going to be bringing these inside. Even though they haven't popped up above the ground yet, I want to give them like the best chance. I did have some heat mats in here plugged into my Bluetti, and I've been unimpressed with how long that lasts. So I had one heat mat plugged in, and that worked for about 36 hours, I think. But then I plugged in 2 heat mats and it didn't even last a night. And so that's not going to do. We do have plans to run electricity out to the greenhouse, though. It's actually cheaper than I thought it was going to be. But that's not going to help these seedlings out this year, so I will be moving them inside for the time being. I am a little bit worried about these seeds in this tray though, and the one that I planted over there, that's all peppers. At one point this last week, the little mini greenhouse that I had them in got to 111 degrees, which is very hot. You can cook your seeds to death, and that can affect germination, but I'm going to leave these a little while longer and baby them a little bit and see if anything does germinate. I think they should be okay. They should.
Here are the peppers over here. These were planted a few days later, so, and peppers usually take a little bit longer than tomatoes to germinate in my experience, so I didn't expect to see anything there. Over here, I planted some, I think these are lettuces in here. I just scattered some seed, and this was just a couple of days ago, and I am seeing little roots come down. I don't know if you're able to pick that up, but we're getting some lettuce germinated. This is a Rocky Top blend that I bought. So actually these two are the Rocky Top lettuce, and then this one is dinosaur kale.
I have started a lot of kale from seed in pots. One of them's down here.
This guy is looking a little pale, probably from oversaturated roots.
And I have some kale in the raised bed garden. We're gonna go over there. It is breezy out, so we'll Sorry, I do have a little thing over my microphone, but it doesn't work awesome all of the time. Oh, I forgot I put the broccoli inside my pocket. It's covered in hay.
This time I did not leave the water on. That's from the rain, I think. Hello, good sir. Would you like a broccoli? It's in 2 pieces.
So I've done a lot of work in the last few days that I have not updated you on. I'm excited to show this to you.
I tore down all of the greenery that was up along this trellis and threw it down in the bed. That's what you see sticking up over here.
And then we had purchased a whole bunch of the Kellogg brand organic soil, and I topped the beds off with that.
Yay, I do have germination out here. I was getting worried.
So those lettuces that I started in the greenhouse, I did as like a fail-safe or as like a plan B for this area. So this whole leg of this U-shaped bed, I scattered with varying lettuces. I think there's a romaine and maybe like a butter crunch type over here. And sometimes with our springtime weather and the birds that are around here, mostly the wind, when you have to sow a plant very superficially because the seed is really tiny or it requires light to germinate, sometimes those things don't work out super well here just because the wind whisks the moisture away from the soil. So the little tiny plants they dry out before they can get their roots deep enough. But we did have quite a lot of rain last night. This germination makes me so happy.
I envision a gorgeous lettuce spread in here.
I did put some kohlrabi on this side of the trellis. Kohlrabi doesn't need a trellis, but just for reference. I don't see any of that popping up quite yet.
And then on the other side of the trellis, I did sow a whole bunch of green arrow peas. That's this side of the trellis and this side of the trellis. We don't have any germination yet, but I'm not surprised.
Those are gonna take just a little bit longer, and I'm being cautiously optimistic about them germinating. They'll germinate. We do have very opportunistic birds in our area.
I actually noticed we do have one little pea sprout coming up right there.
But the birds, they love the fresh greens. Even though there's lots of clover all around and we do have a bird feeder out, they like my little seedlings.
Over here on this side of the U-shaped bed, these are all cabbages.
The birds have been picking at those little first seedling leaves, but so far they're leaving like the true leaves alone.
These might be okay.
Wow, that wind really picked up, didn't it? But this one is bird damage, and this one may or may not be okay. This is a broccoli.
I have noticed that the elephant garlic I put in the ground is sprouting. Some of it is getting a little bit exposed. Let's see, we've got it here, 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 here. It's coming up in here. I've just got some weeds amongst it. I did a little bit of cleaning of this trellis because this is where I put our muscadines. So I've got one Carlos muscadine right here. I did trim it down to one vine, and the other one is right here. So that's where these guys are going to live, and they're going to grow on these 2 trellises.
I can plant things in front of the muscadines, and I'm hoping that I get a delivery later on today that I can show you exactly what I plan to put here. This whole space I hope to eventually have as like a perennial garden. So I've got a perennial thing, a new perennial thing that I want to put here.
And actually on either side of where the muscadines are, I did scatter some things that aren't quite perennials, but they do tend to come back pretty readily. Over here I put some dill, and I don't see any germination quite yet. All of this that you see here is like the refuse that I took down from the trellis. So these are bean plants and tomato plants from last year. These really should help shield those seeds from the wind, but allow enough light through to where the little seedlings will be able to reach towards the light when they need it. On this side over here, I threw in some chamomile.
There's actually 2 different types. I think there's a German chamomile and I can't remember the other one, but one of them is supposedly perennial. So chamomile very readily reseeds. It doesn't necessarily have to be perennial to come back. But I'm guessing with that bigger variety, the more yellow variety of chamomile, that maybe the roots survive winter. I don't really know. It's my first time planting it.
But I put that in here and I don't see anything coming up quite yet. The chamomile usually comes back over where the blackberries are. And I did some trimming in this bed because I like to be able to access through here, so I trimmed, and the blackberries can go as wild as they want over there. But can you see the difference between this kale and the kale in the greenhouse? Much, much greener. This is because this is not oversaturated. Some of it has been eaten by the birds, but you know, it is what it is. I did scatter kale seed in here, much like I did with the lettuce seed over there. I don't see germination with these quite yet. I don't see volunteer chamomile over here either, which does actually surprise me. Chamomile and dill and everything else that I've mentioned that I put in the ground today, it is frost tolerant. And there's a variety of plant that I put over here that I have tried to grow the last couple years, that I have had success growing in the past, but for whatever reason, it hasn't gotten past the seedling stage, maybe the birds. But I put in some yodfa broccoli. So I've talked about in videos past how hard it's been for me to grow a decent head of broccoli. The yodfa broccoli is more of like a sprouting type broccoli. It's really cool looking. It looks like a cross between asparagus and broccoli. It is pretty heat tolerant and it's very good. So I put a whole bunch of that in here because if you can't grow broccoli very well, it's a very good second best. No germination on that quite yet either. So it's possible for the chamomile to volunteer in here or over here or somewhere out there. Yeah, I don't see any chamomile volunteering this year. So I'm glad I planted it. Hopefully it comes up. So over here in the back of the raised bed garden, I have a couple different elderberry plants. We've gotten some greenery coming up on these. Down here is a bed where I put lots of wine cap mushroom spawn. So I've kind of dedicated this bed to mushrooms, but there is something I am going to put in here besides the mushroom spawn. Can you see that? We are going to be having wine caps in no time. The sun came out. That's nice. I do have some wine cap mushroom spawn down in here as well. This is where our asparagus is. See that? Mycelium is living in there too, so success so far. Usually right about now is when I see our first asparagus sprouts coming up out of this bed. Nothing quite yet. It looks like I may have some chives volunteering over here. Our strawberry bed here, it needs some assistance. I did throw down some granular fertilizer for the berries. I have had quite a few people ask me what I use for a berry fertilizer. I don't necessarily hill up compost on my berries, especially the strawberries, because you need to be careful about their crown. It's the part right above where the roots go into the ground that needs to stay up above the soil so that it doesn't rot. So I throw down a granular fertilizer around the strawberries. It used to be called berry tone, but I'll put a picture of what I used this year. I noticed something that I thought was tomatoes at first, but this is not tomatoes. You can actually see quite a lot of it right here. This is cilantro. Look here, there's cilantro there. Lots of it all through here. That's definitely one of those things that very readily comes back in my garden. And cilantro likes to bolt in the heat. It is frost tolerant, but it bolts really readily, which means it flowers really readily, and then it sets its seed and they scatter, and we always get some cilantro. So when these little cilantro seedlings get a little bit bigger, what my goal is to stick them in that mushroom bed that I have over by the elderberry. And as the cilantro grows and gets really full, as it does, it's gonna help shade that bed, and that's gonna be a nice little relationship. I'll let these guys get a little bit bigger before I move them over. Our blueberries seem to be settling in quite well. All of this is alyssum, just like I laid in the greenhouse with the peaches. They look like some of them are trying to put on a little bit of foliage, so that's good. That wind has really picked up, so maybe we'll get a little delivery later and be able to plant it on this video. Good boy. Hey guys, so it's several hours later, a little bit warmer out, and a package came, but it's not the one that I was really hoping would come today, but it's still a good one. Hi, mama's girls. Clover, you be nice to my fence. You'd be nice to my fence. Tori.
talked about recently how we're going to be changing our greenhouse from an in-ground growing space into one that I am growing in containers. So we have a vision for lots of Vigo garden beds in this space, but I also ordered another green stock. So this is the green stock that I've been growing in for a few years, and it's basically always had these strawberries. And strawberries being perennial, that's probably what I'm going to want to keep in this green stock pretty much forever. We love strawberries and I don't hate that idea, but I like this system and I want to be able to use it in other ways. So I bought another one. This one is a little bit different. I bought a different color. This is the top tray thing. So the color is different, but the other thing that's different is that I bought the green stock planter that has the shallower cups. This is called the green stock leaf planter. This one has the standard depth. This one's just a little bit shorter for things that don't need as much root space as this, like leafy greens. That's why it's called the leaf. They have different heights in which you can purchase these. I got the 7 tier. And the place that I put this is probably not going to be the place that it lives permanently, but semi-permanently. You can move these things around. Good, the door's got clearance, that's important. Is that leaning? The leaning tower? Oh shoot, it is, isn't it? Each tier does click in to the tier below it, and sometimes that can be a little bit challenging to line up. Is it leaning less? Yeah, that looks better. So I already have a plan to put in some of those tiny Tim tomatoes that I got from So Right Seeds. And I want to put a little bit of Monstrosa basil, or the lettuce leaf basil, in here. Hi girls, hey! Where are you going? Y'all, sometimes figuring out how to end a video, like how to sign off, is one of the hardest things for me. I was on the struggle bus so hard yesterday in the greenhouse, so I basically just quit. Anyways, please, I'm very open to your suggestions of what else we can plant in one of those 42 planting holes that are, or planting pockets that are in that new green stock. And say a quick little prayer, well wishes, what have you, for our little girls that are, no, see, I'm struggling again. Say a quick little prayer for our goats that are going to be giving birth. We have 4 more left to give birth. We have Barely, Clover here, and then there's Tempest, and lastly Breezy. Kidding season should be wrapped up in about a month, but there's quite a few of them. 3 of them are going to be delivering really soon, so I appreciate it. I'll see you guys soon.